Our first video will focus on the misconceptions. So we're going to tackle IELTS, OET, PTE.
Is it easier for candidates to pass the examination when they're taking the examination overseas or in provinces? Is the validity of IELTS only 2 years?
Greetings to all IELTS, OET, and PTE examinees worldwide. We're so thankful and grateful that after 2 to 3 weeks now, we have almost 1,200 subscribers here on our YouTube channel. So, if for the first week I did all of the videos, and then the other week, it's Sir Philip, now we have another guest. So, this person is considered to be the IELTS and PTE demigod, for he got 9 in all components. 9 in listening, 9 in reading, 9 in writing, 9 in speaking, 9 overall band score. And for PTE, he got exactly the same grades. Perfect 90 over 90 in all components. Ladies and gentlemen, Sir Brian Martin Shawson is joining us for today. And we also have Sir Philip Edward Aitona, the legend who got perfect grades in listening, reading, speaking, and an 8 in IELTS writing, and B for OET writing. So for now, please expect that soon we're going to have our TOEFL and CELTIP online review course as well. So that's something to look forward to in the coming weeks and in the coming months. Sir Brian listed all possible misconceptions here. Before we start with the misconceptions, maybe a word or two from Sir Brian greeting our audience and our viewers.
Welcome to 9.09, our IELTS Review and Tutorial Center. The center that has helped me to get stellar marks in the IELTS examination and also the PTE. And hopefully our videos here at YouTube can also help you to improve your test scores in the exam and get stellar marks like what we got in the examination.
Yes, and so for this week, our first video will focus on the misconceptions. Okay? So let's take a look at these misconceptions and we'll discuss them one by one. So Sir Brian will facilitate. This is his penmanship. So let's begin with the first bullet point.
So a lot of our students ask us whether foreigners actually give higher scores compared to Filipino examiners. What do you think, Philip?
Well, when it comes to the OET, it's not the person you're talking to who gives the grades in the first place. In the OET, the person you talk to is called the interlocutor, but the actual examiner is based in Melbourne, Australia. So the only stimulus that they get to assess is the audio. So they do not know the nationality, the eye contact, the facial expressions. All of this is irrelevant when it comes to the OET. But when it comes to the IELTS, what is it like?
Okay. Sir Brian and I have exactly the same experience. So I took IELTS twice. Sir Brian took IELTS twice. Not because we failed on our first attempt, but simply because we took the examination, IELTS academic module and IELTS general training module. When I first took the examination, I was assigned to a Filipina examiner. Second IELTS, Filipino examiner. But what grades did I get? 9 in speaking, 8.5 in speaking. So for some people thinking you are going to get a lower band score if you're assigned to a Filipino examiner, not true at all. In the case of Sir Brian, he was assigned to 2 Filipina examiners. So, Sir Brian got 8 and 8.5 in speaking. Can you tell us more about your experience in relation to the first misconception?
Well, I don't really think that it's dependent on your examiner or the nationality of your examiner. I think it has more to do with your skill level and whether you're ready to take the examination and you understand how you're graded in the test. I think that's more important than knowing the nationality of your examiner.
So what has 9.09er has to say? If you are prepared, you will pass the examination regardless of the nationality of your examiner. So,
is it easier for candidates to pass the examination when they're taking the examination overseas or in provinces like in the rural areas compared to the city center?
Okay, so Sir Philip here took OET and IELTS. Let's hear from him before we share our insights.
It definitely doesn't matter when it comes to the OET, where you take it. as well as in the IELTS exam, because they take very strong measures to ensure that it is not the location that determines your grade, but rather the ability of the candidate taking the tests. They ensure that the tests do not repeat as much as possible, and that it's always a brand new experience every time you take the test. So it's really a matter of your preparation instead of the location of where you take it.
If I may add, I've been teaching IELTS for 14 years now. At one point in the past, certain examiners conduct the speaking examinations only in particular places. But they changed it because now examiners are assigned to all locations nationwide. So you don't really say that. I'm going to take the examination in this particular province because I want to avoid someone, or I'm expecting to be assigned to a specific examiner. So, like the first argument, you're going to pass the examination regardless of the location if you are prepared.
Well, some people say that it's better to take the examination in a center that gives better scores compared to other centers. Is that true?
Okay. I took the examination in IDP and British Council. If I'm not mistaken, Sir Ron here took both exams in IDP.
Correct.
Yeah, I got it right. Well, for PTE, there is only one testing center, and that's Pearson. So basically, you don't have an option. For OET, it's Kaplan and A. So first, let's talk about OET before we compare IDP and British Council. So, Sir Philip?
When it comes to the testing centers for OET in the Philippines, you have two options. You have ACE and you have Kaplan. Now, essentially, they're not supposed to have any significant differences because both are validated by OET to conduct the test. I have taken the exam in both centers, and I would like to affirm that ACE provides an excellent testing experience. They're very responsive to questions. The environment is conducive to test taking, allowing you to truly bring out the best that you have. So between the two, I would strongly recommend that you go for ACE testing hub. But when it comes to the IELTS, what's it like?
Okay, maybe Sir Brian can share his experience
Yeah,
related
what's it
to
like?
IDP.
IDP is actually a very good testing center, and they provide the same examination that is provided by the British Council, so I don't really think there's any difference here, and the experience will be very consistent. I am also informed that the examination for IDP and the British Council will be identical on a single test date, so there will be no difference in the test papers, and also the manner in which one can take the examination over another candidate.
Okay, so how do I compare IDP and British Council? Let's say they are comparable to two convenience stores. Okay, say for instance, one is 7-Eleven, the other one is Wingstop. And then, let's say IELTS is like C2. Okay? If you go to 7-Eleven, you're going to purchase C2. It's exactly the same product that you're going to get if you go to Wingstop. Now, having said that they're using exactly the same test papers, why is it that certain candidates prefer one test center over the other? That's because of several factors. Number one, there are certain provinces where only IDP is conducting the examination. So, candidates there don't have an option. Also, if you're taking the examination in Metro Manila, it's important for you to know where is the examination conducted. So, where is IDP located? Ortigas. What about British Council? BGC. So, for some people, accessibility is one factor to consider. But now, 9.09er does not recommend a specific testing center just because of the level of difficulty. So, we just want you to know, pick between the two testing centers, the one which offers the location which is closer to where you live. But definitely, you will pass the exam regardless of the testing center, once again, if you are prepared.
There are a lot of there are a lot of people who are selling IELTS certificates online, or OET test certificates online, or even PTE test certificates.
Ridiculous.
Is there truth that these are acceptable for visa applications? What do you think?
That's just hilarious. You cannot buy your exam results. If you try, I strongly suspect that they will catch you and your future will turn very, very dark indeed. They would inform everybody that you are untrustworthy and dishonorable, and your future will definitely change. Would you recommend it?
Well, it's quite unscrupulous for these people to sell IELTS results. In fact, because I give my personal number, I give my personal Facebook account, my personal email, literally every single day there are people asking if I may share this in Tagalog to make it realistic, because people usually message me in Tagalog. They're asking, "Sir, pwede bang bayaran na lang yung exam without taking the examination?" So, I just want to remind you, if you fall for this trap, you will be blacklisted. Not just from taking any English exam, but you will be blacklisted in the visa application. Now, I do not know I have not known any Filipino who has done this, but other nationalities have tried this, and apparently the embassy caught them. So you know what happened during their visa application. They say goodbye to visa application. So please, don't be gullible. Don't be vulnerable. You take the examination because it's the legal way of proving your proficiency in the language without buying certificates that are sold online.
Next, is the computer-delivered examination better than the paper-based exam? Is it easier to pass the computer-delivered IELTS over the paper-based exam? I would assume that you wouldn't really have a problem with OET because here in the Philippines, the OET is purely paper-based. But how about for IELTS?
Okay, so when I took the examination, it's just paper-based. That's because when I took the test, academic and general training, that was when computer-delivered IELTS was not yet offered. So let's talk about the experience of Sir Brian for computer-delivered IELTS before Sir Philip is going to share his paper-based experience in IELTS. Sir Brian?
I took the computer-delivered examination last year, and it was actually not necessarily easier than the paper-based examination. It's just probably more convenient to people who can use the computer really well. So I wouldn't really say that it's easier to take the examination. It's just something that people might prefer over the paper-based examination, especially if they have problems with their handwriting or they fear taking the examination in a hall where there are speakers and they can be distracted, because when you're taking the computer-delivered examination, you're going to be wearing headsets, which is quite different from when you're taking the examination in a huge hall. But I wouldn't really say that there's actually an advantage because they're quite similar.
What about your paper-based experience in both IELTS and OET?
I found it to be very natural because when I read, I usually read using paper. When I take down notes, I use paper as well. I don't have any experience with taking a computer-based test myself, and when it comes to the OET at least, this is also going to be the case for the foreseeable future. OET, you see, will be developing OET at home. What this means is that in response to the pandemic, you can now take the OET in the comfort of your own bedroom. You're going to have a 360-degree camera so that the examiner can see the entire room where you're taking it to ensure that you're doing it in a fair and honorable manner. However, this is still being trialed in the United Kingdom. So when it comes to the Philippines, that's not an option for us for the near future. And given this, it's just a paper-based for us. So it's something that we should get used to.
Okay, to summarize our discussion regarding that bullet point, for PTE, you don't have an option because it's purely computer-delivered. Okay? For OET, it's just paper-based version here in the Philippines. Well, we're talking about the status quo, and as of August 29, what day is today? It's August 29. Yeah, August 29, 2020. At least you know that we are accurate as of the recording. But for IELTS, please don't ask us which one is easier. You ask yourself, are you more comfortable with a QWERTY keyboard, or are you the traditional person who prefers to use pen and paper? You can answer your own question.
Is the validity of IELTS only 2 years?
And what happens if it expires, okay? So earlier we talked about this one. Maybe you can share the explanation why all English examination results are only valid for 2 years. So IELTS, OET, PTE, TOEFL, CELPIP, all of them for 2 years only. What do you think is the reason why there is an expiration of the result?
Because English, just like any other skill, if you don't use it, you lose it. So the test results that you get is merely a snapshot of your current proficiency in the language. But if you don't make use of the language, you're gonna lose these skills that you used to have. So therefore, a lot of organizations demand that you submit a fresh test result. Some require at least that it's still valid within the last 2 years. Other organizations require that when you submit your test result, it still has at least half a year to go before it becomes invalid. It's best to reach out to the organization that you're going to be submitting your test results to because it varies.
So this is the question that people usually ask. So, sir, what am I supposed to do in order for me not to repeat the examination? Well, it's simple. After you pass the exam, you have 1.5 years to 2 years to make sure that you submit this result to the embassy in order for you not to repeat the examination. But you have to know that there are certain institutions that might require you to repeat the examination. So it's a matter of always asking the embassy or always asking the requiring institution.
Great. Now, this is a very common question among our students. Is it very important to use idiomatic expressions in English exams to impress the examiners?
Maybe, but we'll start with Sir Brian here because Sir Brian got a 9 in writing, 9 in speaking. Well, I got 9 in speaking, 8 in writing. Sir Philip got 9 in speaking, 8 in writing. But for someone to get 9 in writing and 9 in speaking, okay, Sir Brian, did you use idioms to pass the exam? Or Sir Brian, did you use big words like bucolic, quintessential for you to get that perfect 9? Let's hear it straight from Sir Brian.
Actually, I've never used any idiomatic expressions in my examination for writing. And in particular, I just relied on the range of language that I was able to demonstrate in the examination. I don't think this is actually something that you need to get a band 9 in the test, although less common lexical items will be necessary.
Yes.
Not necessarily big words, but less common lexical items, I would assume.
Okay, so what about OET?
In OET, you don't really get to brandish the whole range of your language, unlike in the IELTS exam where it's more free form. But in OET, you're writing a letter to a fellow healthcare professional. So it's very formal, it's very strict, and it's very restricted to the healthcare context. And when it comes to the healthcare context, you don't really have time for idioms like beating around the bush, or happy camper, things like this. But rather, the language that you must use is the language that is used in the healthcare context, in which people taking the OET are supposed to be familiar with. So the OET is less a test of language and more a test of communication. In order to score well in the OET letter writing and in speaking as well, you're not expected to use these bombastic words, but rather the correct words that will successfully get your meaning across to the one that you're communicating with.
As we always recommend our candidates, creativity is something that will help you pass the examination, but it is not a requirement. So, we repeat, idioms are not required to pass the exam, big words are not required to pass the exam. If you want to get a higher band score, we recommend the less common words, less common language, but not necessarily complicated language. Okay?
Now let's talk about the reading examination for IELTS and the OET. Is it necessary for you to comprehend everything in these examinations to get a good score?
Before we discuss that bullet point, what's common for all three of us, we all got 9 in reading. So, rest assured that for this next part of the discussion, the people talking are credible, okay? Straight from the horse's mouth.
That's an idiom.
But it comes out naturally for us when we talk, right? It's not as if we forced it in the discussion.
It's hardly artificial.
Yeah, let's begin with Sir Brian. For someone who got perfect 90 over 90 in PTE reading, perfect 9.0 in IELTS academic, and perfect 9.0 in IELTS general training, how did you get it? Did you really need to comprehend every single word in the passage?
Well, it's very hard if you're going to try and comprehend everything because these tests, as you know, have time limits. And if you can't finish the examination within an hour, or say for example for PTE less than an hour, like 41 minutes, it's going to be very difficult for any candidate to get a good score. So I don't really think that it's important to comprehend everything. Reading needs to be very purposive. There needs to be a purpose, and the purpose is to find the answers. So I think what's more important is that people are able to find the answers to the questions and not really read everything. How about for OET?
There are lots of similarities between what you discussed and the OET reading. Reading must be purposive, and in the OET reading test, there are 3 kinds of reading that they're trying to assess: reading for specific information, for gist, and for opinion. So this means that you read in different ways. Sometimes you only need one piece of data, and everything else is filler. So you have to know what to ignore and what it is that you're looking for. At the same time, when you're assessing for the gist, for example, or for the opinion of the piece, then you would need a more comprehensive comprehension of the entire text. So this means that you have to adapt your reading to the requirements of the task. You must be very deliberate and purposive in how you go about doing it.
So in discussing this bullet point, I just want you to imagine one passage in IELTS, 750 to 1,500 words. But how many answers do you need per passage? Just 13 to 14. Definitely, there are more details that you don't need as compared to the answers that you're looking for. So, during the review proper, we'll tell you how to answer true, false, not given, matching heading types of questions. But one thing's for sure, you don't need to understand every single word just to pass. Even more, to get 9 in the reading subtest.
Is it necessary to have an American, British, or Australian accent for you to get a good score in the speaking test?
What about you, Philip?
Definitely not, or else it's only the Americans and the British who would be passing this exam. I believe that what is common for all of the tests is that your accent not be forced. It's not something that's artificial, but rather your accent doesn't get in the way of you communicating your message. So it means that you must not sound like this, for example, but do not expect it to talk like this as well, but rather a neutral accent that allows your message to be clearly understood. I think that's what's gonna give our students a very high score.
When Sir Brian took the test, did you speak in the British accent? Australian accent? Northern state?
Yeah, I know. That's going to be very artificial, and it would sound very forced. It would sound very unnatural, and examiners wouldn't really like that. So I think it's very important, as Sir Philip said here, that you speak in a neutral accent, an accent that everybody can understand, as opposed to an American, British, or Australian accent. Some people say that the longer your essay, the higher the score that you get. Is this true?
Okay, we look at the first criterion, which is task achievement for writing task 1, task response for writing task 2 in IELTS. Okay? It says that you're supposed to reach the minimum number of words. But it does not say that the longer the essay, the higher the grade. What's most important, were you able to respond to the question? So, the suggested limit, around 250 for task 1, around 350 for task 2. Clarification, we did not say it's the prescribed limit. We just said it's the suggested limit. Okay? So, kindly remind yourself, if you are able to come up with something that is responsive to the question, it fully and appropriately answers the question. It doesn't have to be long.
Okay.
Okay?
Can people really pass the examination without test preparation? Because I would understand that a lot of people do not want to prepare for the examination or don't want to spend money on the test preparation program. So can they pass the examination without preparation?
OET, PTE, IELTS perspective.
Well, definitely it's possible. Whether a candidate passes or fails in the examination, to a large extent depends on the candidates. Some people are very well versed in using the language. Some use it only in special occasions, like happy birthday, happy new year, things like this. So therefore, whether you should invest in a preparation center like 9.09er truly depends on your baseline skills. You have to assess yourself whether your current skills already match the requirements of the organization that you're going to be applying for. I think this is common as well to all of the other tests. What do you say?
I think for PTE it's quite different. There are a lot of people who actually get their desired scores without a lot of test preparation simply because this is a skill-based examination and they're assessed by the computer. However, there are also a lot of candidates who do not get their desired test scores if they do not prepare because they don't know the strategies that they need to employ to get the best scores. There are a lot of things that they're doing that might not be acceptable to the computer, or the computer might actually mark down, and that could be the cause for failure in most instances. And I've seen plenty of candidates taking the examination multiple times and getting frustrated because they just don't know what to do in the test. So in that case, I would recommend test preparation definitely.
Okay, let's talk about the IELTS. Listening and reading, I promise, you will make it even if you do the review on your own. But what about the productive skills, namely writing and speaking? First, you have to know what grade is required from you, more than anything else, because that's going to be your basis. So, what's the national average grade in speaking? 6.8. What about the national average grade in writing? 6.2 to 6.3. If you're applying for student visa and all you need is 5.5 or 6, then I suggest take the examination, because even if you're below average, you will make it. It's just that. It's quite unfortunate. What about those applying for working visa or immigrant visa and you are a professional? More often than not, it's 7 that you need. So if this is the requirement, but this is the national average, it should give you an idea that more people don't get the required band score. Now, that's when we enter the picture. According to IBP and British Council, 60 to 70% of the candidates don't enroll in any preparation course. In fact, there are others messaging me, do you have a one-day course? And I respond to them, yeah, because you can improve overnight.
Yes.
Remember, it's a skill. Nothing happens just like that. So, we offer unlimited courses to make sure that you can review at your own pace. We even have recorded versions of the lecture. So even if you're based in Namibia, like our student Jonathan, or
Hi, Jonathan.
yeah, if you are our reviewee who lives in Brazil, we have a reviewee from Sweden, from Spain, from Northern Marianas, from Papua New Guinea. These people are able to prepare for the examination with the help of 9.09er despite the time difference, because we have recorded versions of the class that they can watch even if the Filipino lecturers are sleeping. Okay? So that's for our first video, the misconceptions in IELTS, OET, and PTE. So hopefully, even with a short video like this, we're able to help you in preparing for the examination and most importantly, get the required band scores. So for our next 2 videos, Sir Brian right here will make a writing task 1 and writing task 2 on the spot. Check it out.
If you found this video helpful, then subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on our social media pages. And see you in future videos.
Thank you for watching.